Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third episode of the Pursuit of Precision podcast. Today, we interviewed an amazing man in Ken Lear, who is a great family man in addition to running sales and marketing offices throughout the entire country. He gave us so many valuable insights in terms of how he was able to scale his career, and you're going to be able to take so many different things from this interview. While that is true, I'm going to dive into three things that I learned in this interview. The first thing that I learned from Ken was to invest in the individual that you're going to be learning from or being mentored by versus what industry necessarily you're specifically in. There are so many different avenues that you can take your career, and what he claims so much to what he was able to do was choosing and putting his faith into a mentor that you could tell very much so was interested in his development, in him getting to his goals and not so much all about himself. The second most important thing that I learned while interviewing Ken today was that in order to have longevity in whatever industry you're in, you're going to need to understand that there's never a point where you're done learning, and there's always people out there that have experienced and done more than you have. And so over the course of his over 20-year career in his industry, he has always challenged himself to learn more, always looked up to people that have done more than him, and never reached to a point where he settled in and said, I'm done learning. He'd continue to push himself, continue to learn, and always understands the grand perspective that there's always more to be done. All right, guys, so the last and in my opinion, the most impactful insight that Ken brought was the fact that emotions can be looked at as a positive thing versus a negative. Many people might get nervous or anxious or be worried when they're challenged in any type of way. And a lot of times that can freeze you. And what instead he said he chose to do in his career is learn to accept those nerves and those feelings and emotions that he was experiencing and harness them to be able to push himself further and use that energy and that emotion that he's experiencing for a good thing. All right, guys, so that was just three of the things that I benefited and I learned from most in that interview. There are so many other things to be learned, so make sure you watch this thing through and through. You're not going to want to miss anything that's in this interview. To the episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pursuit of Precision podcast. My name is Ryan Jaros, and over the next 12 months, I'm going to be interviewing 50 of the most successful, intelligent, influential, and ultimately happy people that I can in order to hear their story and share with all of you what I learn along the way. So today we have our guest, Ken Lear. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. If you don't mind, I'd love to share a little bit about you. Obviously, this is going to go out to more so than just the Metro Detroit area. So I'd like to share a little bit about yourself for people to get to know you, and then you can kind of expand on everything from there. So, All right, everybody. So Ken is first and foremost a husband to his wife, Sarah, and a father to his two sons, Brady and Mason. Ken is an entrepreneur, a consultant, and a mentor while serving as president of 2313 Incorporated. His company represents multiple corporations on the Fortune 100 list, offering a variety of sales and marketing solutions. In addition to that, his company 2313 serves as an ambassador for Operation Smile, fundraising for children born with cleft lips, palates, and facial deformities. He participates in Volunteers of America, as well as JDRF, which funds type 1 diabetes research. Now, as I said before we jumped on here, I want you to dive a little bit deeper in terms of the infrastructure within that company that I just explained. That's obviously a very broad blanket statement for what the company does. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about what exactly does Ken Lear's position look like in terms of what you're managing on a day-to-day basis. If you could, I know it's a lot, but can you give me the infrastructure? Because in my research and obviously knowing you as well, I could try to explain it, but there's no shot that I could explain it as well as you can in terms of what it all looks like. So
for sure. So as a company, we're contracted by major companies like Fortune 100. So AT&T's, Verizon's, T-Mobile's in the past. Recently, we've had a deal with Amazon. And they hire us to simply help them go to market. So instead of doing the billboards or the TV commercials, some things that are, a little tougher nowadays to get, customer acquisition, we provide salespeople, we provide the people talent to go out and interact with small businesses, to interact with consumers in a retail space. We've done some door-to-door, just really whatever a client wants. We kind of look at, what they're looking to get, the type of acquisition, type of customer, and then we create a marketing play to go out and get that business for them.
And how much is that collaborative in terms of, like you said, you do whatever they're asking, but do you sometimes provide, hey, this might work better, or we're seeing that this is really getting us good results? Are you having that conversation?
Yeah, I'll tell you, nowadays we've been at this thing for 20 years.
Yeah.
So they know us pretty well and know a lot of the partners I work with pretty well. So they know the results we can drive. So nowadays it's less about the approach we're taking, more about the tools, more about the customer, and really how to get in there and interact, right? So we're all face to face. And as I'm sure you know, and I know you have experience in this yourself.
I do.
There's some customers respond to certain things certain ways.
Yeah.
Right. And so nowadays it's more about the approach, the materials we use, and really kind of the pitch we use, and the incentives and promotions, things like that, and less about kind of the how we do it.
For sure.
Yep. But yeah, so as of most recently, it's been kind of crazy. So, since COVID, we had a little pivot, as a lot of organizations have had, and we've diversified into big box retail stores. And so if you walk into a Costco or a Sam's Clubs or even a Target, and Target was the initial one, AT&T's contracted us to provide the staffing, the people, to promote AT&T services in the technology department. And over the years, they've had a group in there that have been in there supporting with, certain, tech pieces and things. And we are now providing a sales team to drive revenue. Kind of an interesting concept, because in these big box stores like a Target and maybe even some Walmarts, they're kind of changing their, what their store is meant to be. So Target, as an example, has, this concept of being a grocery store.
Yeah.
This concept of being now a beauty kind of salon in a way. And there's
You're seeing all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. They're starting to have everything under one roof. And so what we're now providing is the kind of the wireless play and the TV and internet, the entertainment side of things.
Oh, okay. I never thought about it that way too, because they're selling the products without necessarily the service in a couple of different ways.
Exactly.
So interesting. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. So we tested the idea literally 2 weeks before the pandemic. We got this opportunity here in Michigan, here in Detroit. We got 5 stores. What we didn't know, and Target as an example, has always had wireless, in their store. They had postpaid, prepaid wireless services they could sell. And what we didn't know is they gave us some of the most underperforming stores in their entire portfolio, because they're just like,
prove yourself.
Yeah, exactly, right? They're trying to say, hey, what can you do? Those 5 stores over the first 2 weeks later, the pandemic hits. And so we had to make a critical decision on, hey, are we going to stay the course, or are we going to kind of pull back and see what's happening in the world? And we decided, my office here in Detroit, among all the offices I coach and we run nowadays, we decided to stay the course. We decided to stay in the stores no matter what was happening. We took it, kind of on the chin, wore a mask. We're doing face-to-face sales, and we're like wearing masks. It was kind of a crazy time. And a couple months later, as things kind of lightened up, they came back to us and said, we were just so impressed with the quality. We're so impressed with the performance in these tough times. How quickly can we get into 300 stores? And so, my wife would describe me as a chicken with my head cut off, and trying to talk to all of our partners and our leadership and people behind the scenes that support us. And it's been awesome. But, to me, 18, 19 years into my career at that point, it was like starting something brand new.
Yeah. Which was exciting.
It was so exciting. It was the ground floor. 18, 20-hour days. I would wake up talking to the guy. I was just talking to my buddy Mike, who helps us behind the scenes. I was just talking to him a minute ago. I'd wake up talking to him. I'd fall asleep with my phone on me at 11:30 at night, and talking to him, and we're going through things, and And yeah, so it was a lot of fun. And over the course of the kind of next year, 2 years, this business we're building has now provided a ton of people opportunity. We've expanded it across the country. We're literally in about 600 stores now across the U.S. Promoting these services. We diversified our portfolio into different retailers like Costco and Sam's Club's. Kind of interesting thing about
because
Costco.
you can prove the results based on previous.
We proved the concept that we could sell wireless and kind of be a support. And the interesting thing about the retailer is, these retailers, we provide them inventory-free revenue. And what that means is our reps, we have a tablet, we have a stand, we have, the ability to sell. We don't have hundreds of cell phones sitting with us.
Yeah. Like a store would.
Like a store would. So we actually drop ship everything to the customer.
In addition to that, there's not the space either, right? I mean, they don't have to have a storefront. Like you walk in and you see a Great Clips at Kroger or whatever you're saying.
Yep.
There's no physical location either. So I can't even imagine. I mean, there's no expense there, really. I mean, obviously they pay you guys in terms of selling it, but...
Totally. And then behind the scenes, AT&T takes care of the retailer for allowing us to be in there. So it's this huge win-win-win.
Yeah.
And then from the customer, they now have an experience in the store. They got some really good deals. And so, Target and some of these retailers are becoming more of a wireless and frankly, behind the scenes with some of these corporate locations for some of these AT&Ts, Verizon's, T-Mobiles. I mean, the amount of customers that they get to upgrade compared to the amount of new business that we create.
Yeah.
Just give you a simple glimpse. This past week, we did 10,000 products on this program.
It's incredible.
So, and one product is like one line. Like you own a cell phone, you have one line.
Yeah.
That's a product.
Wow. Yeah. And it's just incredible that it was kind of the I'll figure it out on the back end type of thing. You said yes first, I'm assuming. Is that kind of how it went when they're like, hey, can you get in 300 stores? You're probably like, yes. And then, okay, now I'm going to figure it out on the back end. So it's incredible that you were willing, and I'm assuming that confidence came from you figuring things out over your 18-year career to say, no, I don't know how to do this exactly, but I have the confidence in my ability to figure it out.
Right.
And so that's where it shows that's incredible that you were able to do that.
And to be fair, I have a group of partners. We've been doing this for a long time in different industries, and we've scaled companies and scaled clients and multiple times. So I can't take all the credit by any means, but I was carrying a lot of the weight in the front end and figuring out in store. I was, I literally, when I talk about starting all over again, I was a sales rep.
Yeah, you
myself.
were doing it. Yeah.
I was in the store. I was closing deals. I was, setting the
proving
pace.
Concept to your staff, probably, honestly.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Yep. Not proving concept to the client, proving concept to our partners, proving concept to my team who'd never done this before either.
Exactly.
And so that was the most exciting part of it, is kind of
just setting the clock back for you a little bit.
Yeah, totally. And like I said, when I say 18, 20-hour days, so I would still do the stuff I got to do in my day.
Yeah.
And then I would go out to these stores and interact. And I remember, an interesting thing. So a lot of these retailers need the staffing. That's what really they're paying us for. And then the, AT&T side of things, they want the revenue, they want the customer. And so, I found myself staffing a store by myself. I wasn't training or helping anyone else out because I knew long-term this was going to be a huge win.
That's unbelievable. Well, like I said, back to where I know we're diving in a little bit, but I want to see if we can just try to create the picture of like, what all are you overseeing? So in regards to that, obviously you're in a lot of stores now. You have a lot of teams that help manage all this stuff. And so can you just give us a framework of what that all looks like in terms of what you're managing? You said obviously you have your own office. And then in addition to that, you consult and help with other offices. And if you could explain how that all works and what that all looks like.
Totally. So I was explaining this to you a minute ago. I have, in my eyes, 3 different businesses. My office, my business that I own and operate here locally in Detroit. We have a staff of about 25 people. I have 4 or 5 people work behind the scenes in recruiting capacities, managing staff, and managing process, including the 20 or so sales reps. And then I also have been in this industry for 20 years. I literally just celebrated my 20 years like 3 weeks ago, which is kind of crazy.
I'm excited to hear about how that conference went that you were telling me about. So
I for the record, I started in business when I was 7, so 20 years later we're here. But yeah, so in that 20 years, I mean, 20 years ago when I was 22 years old, to be fair, I was told, hey, if you love what you do, share it with other people, help others get to a chance to run a business or lead or become an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I've taught close to 30 people all over the country to do that. And so we've scaled the concept into different industries. As you know, my buddy Bill and others here in town, as we've met. So that's kind of my second business, my organization of offices that I provide leadership and coaching, and I help them run companies, and I help them make day-to-day decisions and operations. Yeah. And then in this concept, and we call this EDM, exclusive dealer model, in these retail stores, because I was help on the front end of creating it, we've since brought into this concept 70 people, 70 entrepreneurs that run separate companies all over North America. And that's kind of my third business, where I help coach, consult, make high-level decisions on concepts and process to help scale that. And as we get a new retailer and as we get new opportunities, the team leans on me to make a lot of those decisions on where we're going next.
Love it. Okay. So now I wanted you to tee this up for me. So now that we have the framework of what today looks like, where you're at, what you're managing, we'll get into what your days look like, how you're managing all that, because that's a lot. I can't even imagine how you structure your day. But I want to take it back all the way to day one now. And I want to hear, what was ground zero for you? What did it look like when you didn't have any confidence? You would have never in a million years said yes to something like that. And what was maybe your first win, where you started to, it could be as small as when you first went and played college soccer or something like that. But what was your first win that maybe allowed you to stack confidence to say, okay, I can take that next leap forward? What was maybe something that you knew deep down that gave you confidence to be able to do something that was outside of what you felt you could?
I'll tell you, I was very blessed to have great parents. My mom came to the U.S. at 18 years old from Colombia. I'm wearing my Colombian jersey today.
Love it.
And she came to the U.S. for the American dream. She came to the U.S. for a kind of opportunity. Ran into my father in New York City in an engineering company. He was the blonde hair, blue-eyed American. She was the Colombian, dark hair, beautiful, woman. And I guess that, the rest is history. But, my mom did a very good job with my brother and I of always giving us, I guess they're called one-liners nowadays, like little things like the lazy work twice.
Yeah, like almost mantras.
Mantras, exactly. Yeah. And she said to me along the way, and I didn't know this until I was a bit older, maybe teenage years, but apparently when she was pregnant with me, she had a lot of trouble, a lot of challenges.
You're fighting in there.
And yeah, something was going on, and I guess they felt like I wouldn't make it at one point, is from what I had heard. And so I just remember being, a teenager and going through things in teenage years, and my mom always just said to me, "You're here for a reason, honey. There's a reason you're here. I don't know what, but you're here for a reason." And then, as I got older, I'd watch movies like Spider-Man. And at the end of the movie, it says, "With great leadership comes great responsibility." Mm-hmm. And I'd always get this overwhelming feeling in my body that, hey, there's a reason I'm here.
Purpose.
And deep purpose. And so I'll tell you, to answer your question, the confidence, I think, just comes from, watching my parents make and hearing of their risky decisions, and having the confidence themselves to make decisions when they were young to make an impact on me as I was raised and I grew up. And so I've done kind of the same. I started off in this industry at 22 years old. And to your point, I played college soccer at Penn State. Mm-hmm. I think you and I both thought at one point of our lives we'd be playing in the pros. Yeah. And that, I went over to Europe, and it was more of a school trip with soccer as opposed to a soccer trip with school. Yeah. But I realized pretty quickly I wasn't going to be Ronaldo or Messi or anything like that. And then after I got back, I just realized that, hey, I got to hang up the boots a little bit and get into business. But early in my career, as I started looking at opportunity, and again, I always think about, so my mom being a Hispanic woman who didn't speak English very well, in a country that, it is what it is. There's some discrimination in the workplace. And I would hear her at the end of the day come home like, I didn't get this project, I didn't get that project. And she'd always have issues in the workplace based on, at least she felt what she wasn't getting. Then my dad, being the vice president of his engineering company who never saw any of this, just saw things very differently. So when I got into the workplace, I started to, in the model that I'm in, the industry I'm in, being in sales, I heard things like performance-based. I heard things like no seniority advance based on your effort. Experiencing that with my mom, seeing how my dad did, being an athlete, to me, it was like a perfect storm of opportunity. And so, but it all started with my mom and those mantras.
Yeah. And I think it's important. Confidence. Yeah. I think it's important to note as well. It doesn't always have to look exactly like what your background looked like or my background or whoever's background, because that person could have been an uncle. That person could have been a friend. That could have been, you could have no parents where you're living at your friend's house. Like, I think it's very important to note that who that person is doesn't always have to, your situation doesn't always have to be exactly the same as everybody else's, but the common theme is the fact that that person was instilling things in you that inspired you and let you know that there was a reason that you're here and that you weren't just here to show up. You were here to do something and have impact in the world.
Yep.
So,
yeah, and I'll tell you, nowadays, as I've gotten older and all these things have happened in business and I've been blessed with a ton of opportunities, I realized 3 years ago, as we had all got, a couple months to pause a little bit, I realized that my mission, my purpose is to help change the world one leader at a time. I know I do it on a day-to-day basis in my company, the way I approach my staff, the way I address, and talk to people and support them. I mean, just even coming on this podcast with you, I have this, I feel this obligation, this responsibility to pay it forward. And I always look at situations based on the person. I don't look on the situation based on the business. I know at the end of the day, if I help the human get through whatever they're going through, great people will want to work with me.
Yeah.
So
100%.
That's
I love that.
I take.
No, I love it. So going back to kind of where we were at the beginning in terms of, so you played college soccer at Penn State. I want to see if you can paint a very descriptive picture of what that looked like back then, because I think sometimes it's so hard. People get out of touch with now who you are, who Ken Lear is now. So you drive a nice vehicle, you do some traveling, you're speaking on stage, you're doing all these big things. And I think
going to Mexico tomorrow.
There you go. Exactly. So the point is we see all these amazing things.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people, especially just starting out or maybe haven't made that jump yet, put you on this pedestal of you're not human. Right. And that's just not true. I've obviously gotten to know you over the years, and you're very humble, and everything you do is about helping and trying to inspire others. And
sure.
I think it's just very important for people to be able to connect with you as a normal human being, as you are. And so would you mind painting us a picture of when Ken Lear had $0? He was driving a junker, and what did day one look like in terms of that? What was that visual for people?
Well, I'll tell you, you mentioned college sports. I'm in college, I had some tough times playing at that level. I went into things, we were a 2-time state championship high school team. I was a captain of my club team. My older brother played at Penn State, and he was an All-American. Like, there's a lot of positive things that were helping me, kind of believe that I could play at that level. And, but I wasn't, I didn't play that much my first year. I played a bit, I started here and there, and I didn't play as much as I wanted to. My third year, I really got into the lineup and really worked hard. I went away to Spain to travel abroad my second semester, my junior year. When I came back, my senior year, I got cut from the team. And the reason I got cut is I didn't, based on my scholarship to play in Penn State, I didn't perform up to the level of what my coach thought I was, what the return on investment, right?
Yeah.
It's a business.
Yeah. Because he's got new people coming in and
totally. And he's got scholarship money. He's got it's a business.
Yeah.
And I remember going through that experience, and I remember saying, F you, coach, and blah, blah, he's picking up, and like taking no responsibility. And I remember being in such a dark place and wanting to transfer schools and do all this stuff. And I remember my dad was just like, you need to finish it out. You need to either suck it up and finish it out and get back on the field, or just not play. And so I took a semester off, and it ended up coming back and playing my 5th year. because after taking a semester off, Coach and I, we got back on better terms. But I think back, to your point about like the beginning of the moments in life that were a major impact that have helped me accomplish things nowadays. Mm-hmm. That was a big moment for me, because that was the first time in my life that someone took away something from me that I really cared about. And I realized that if you don't do what you need to do, you're going to lose out.
Yeah.
You're going to miss out. And so through the experience, I was like, he was the devil. It wasn't, not good at all. 20 years later, knowing what I know now in business, I would have made the same decision if I was him.
You would, yeah.
Absolutely. Because I didn't perform. I didn't, return on investment, it wasn't there. But going through it, I'm so grateful I went through that, because when I fell into business and I got in, to doing other things, I had that experience. Yeah. And I can lean on that knowing how I felt. And I've kind of made it a point not to lose out anymore.
Well, and how crazy is that the business that you're in now is totally, everything that you do is based on performance and taking responsibility for every action that you take. And back then, as you said, you were the person that was blaming others, blaming the coach, blaming the situation, blaming a number of different things, right? Mm-hmm. And so maybe that was your first lesson to realize that's how the world works. You're responsible for your own actions and the results that those actions give you, right? So that's amazing that you learned that. And it's crazy. I feel like it's so easy to look back and be like, oh, it makes sense how I was able to transition into now taking a job that was solely based on my performance, right? And it's just crazy how the math works backwards at that point. But so tell me about the transition then from, okay, I'm not playing soccer anymore, to taking day one job with, because you were just a salesperson at that time, I would assume. And tell us a little bit maybe about what the company looked like at that time too, because I think it's important to provide context for what it's scaled to now versus what you were getting into at the time.
Yeah. So, coming out of college, interviewed with a lot of companies, right? Northwestern Mutual is a financial network.
I did that one.
Did you? Yeah.
I was doing them just for experience at one point. I literally was just doing interviews to talk to people. I mean, even just to have the conversation with these people, to get comfortable talking with people that I'm not used to talking to. So yes, I've done
people
that.
Didn't know the background. I mean, they know a resume, and you got to sell yourself. Such an important skill. Interviewed with Franklin Templeton investment banking company, and just kind of dabbled myself out there. My advisor at Penn State try to get me into an interview with Sports Illustrated in New York City.
Oh, cool.
And then I came across one of our sales offices, and I went in an interview with a guy, Michael Sessions. He's a brother to me now.
Michael Sessions. I feel like I know that.
You definitely know that.
Okay. Name. Yeah.
Yeah. And Michael did my interview, and I'll tell you, I remember walking out of the interview and Dave Matthews Band. I don't know if you know Dave. I'm a big Dave Matthews fan.
Give me some credit. I know.
Okay. So I mean, the radio was playing in the lobby, and the lady set up for super nice. Went in an interview with him in person, and he talked about sales and training and development and growth, and he was a young guy. He was in his late 20s, and I liked that concept. I was like, and I walked out of there. I remember grabbing his business card, and I get in the car, and I'm like, oh, this guy's pretty. Oh my God, that was the owner. That was the CEO of the company. And
what car was it, by the way?
It was a 1981 Corsica with an automatic seatbelt. I borrowed it from my grandma.
Nice.
And it was a junker. So I remember getting in the car and thinking to myself, oh my gosh, that guy was the owner of the company. And the thing that I walked away from the interview, he just reminded me, and I've told him this for 20 years. I said this the other night on stage when he actually gave me some love. But he just reminded me of my older brother. Confident. I knew he was going somewhere. I didn't know a lot about the concept of his business or what was going on. But I knew if I worked for him, I would learn a ton. And I'd learn a ton about life, business, sales, whatever.
So you believed in the person more so than at the beginning, at least, than the business. Yeah.
100%. I had no idea what the business concept was or what it would entail, the skills required. I knew it was sales. But I just walked away from the interview and I said, man, I had to think about it. I don't know. I didn't know, the company, whatever. And I remember asking some of my advisors and asked my dad, what he thought about, this experience if I got into it. And they all just said, hey, what's the worst case scenario? you need sales experience. Every company that's you're interviewing with, they're saying get 2 years of experience, and once you get that, we'll look at your resume.
Mm-hmm. We'll consider.
And I'm
you.
like, yeah. And I'm like, well, how am I going to get the experience if you're not willing to offer me the experience, right? And so I just really got started with him to gain that experience. And then over time, he started explaining to me the concept and kind of where the business could go. And he took a lot of personal time with me. He spent a lot of time with me outside of the office and just kind of had an interest in helping me along. And over time, I just have been really grateful for that and speeded up many years later. Yeah, I actually stood in his wedding when he got married in his 30s. He stood in my wedding. So yeah, I mean, again, like he's a brother to me and has had a major impact on my life in a positive way.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's so important to note too, in terms of, I think so many young people get into these interviews, or it doesn't matter age at all actually, but get into interviews and they're so invested in every little detail of what the job looks like. Right. And what you're saying is you invested solely for the most part in the individual that you were going to be working side by side with or learning from. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I think it's really important to note that, especially when you're looking at just gaining experience and just getting started and really pursuing things seriously, how important it is to invest in the person that you're going to be learning from and what you think their intentions are, if they're genuinely there to help you, if you're actually going to get the attention that you need to develop and grow, and that investment that you made, regardless of what industry it was. Because what's even crazier is what that industry and what that business was then isn't even close to what it is now, right? And so that investment in a person more so than an industry is what ultimately I think is what got you to where you're at. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll tell you, it's to me, it's the relationship that you have with people is more valuable than the money you make. I believe that if you have the right relationships with people and, the more people that want to see you do well, the faster you're going to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And it's a service. You got to give a lot to others, to people, to, the world before you're going to get, in my opinion, what you really want. So, and to me, that's just my values anyways. How I was raised. I mean, my mom would, take her jacket off her back if you were cold, kind of thing.
Yeah. 100%. That's awesome. Well, tell me a little bit about some of the initial skills that maybe you had to develop early, because you were obviously, how old were you? 23, 22?
22, yeah.
22 years old.
Yeah.
So, and very much so a kid at that point, really just coming out of college, not having any experience in the professional world. What are some of the initial skills that you had to develop? First off, when you were just becoming a good salesperson, and then second off, I know how the industry works to an extent, and you're probably in a leadership role pretty quickly or within the near future after. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about first what you felt you developed on your own. And then second, what were the things that you needed to do in order to develop as a leader to start?
It makes me laugh. I had to learn how to keep my attitude. I'm competitive. I mean, from hockey and I remember from even sports, like if I would get fouled and it was a dirty foul in soccer, I was the one that was chirping back at the ref or chirping at the person that would take me out or whatever. And instead of just playing the game, like I think of again, I look at, icons in the soccer world, like Messi as an example, who, just won the World Cup. He gets fouled all the time, but you never see him like turn around and go after the player. I did that.
Yeah.
So in business, when I, going out and doing sales, there's a lot of rejection. And so I did learn how to, there's something called law of averages. The more customers I speak to, the more contacts I make, the more presentations, and I had to be okay with it. I had to learn how to kind of keep my composure. And just in general, that composure nowadays, running a business, it's multiplied.
Yeah.
Tenfold, right?
I can't believe how important it is, from the experience that you're referencing right now, to be able to be comfortable in your own skin, and what you did in that situation many times has literally zero impact on what you're going to be reciprocated with. Right. And so if you can just be comfortable with how you handled the situation and know that you did everything you could with the right morals and doing it the right way, you can still go to bed and sleep perfectly fine and be happy with the way that things went. That's what it sounds like you're referencing.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. And then along the way, as I started to learn how to not just do the sales, there was opportunities to lead and to manage and things. And so, I had to learn how to conduct an interview, right? Because as I matured in my career, I started moving to more management roles and sales, management roles. And the office and the owner said, well, as managers are created, you got to learn HR, you got to learn how to, mentor people one-on-one. You got to learn how to run a sales training class. You have 20, 25 people, and all things that I had never done. And, public speaking for me, that was in college. I was the guy that would be the one that would do all the work and then let Ryan do the presentation because I just, maybe it was a confidence thing. Maybe I just didn't care enough, but that public speaking thing was a little scary for me, but I had to get over it. I had to, I remember the first time that I ran one, I was like shaking. Visibly shaking. And, it's kind of interesting now because, the other night I spoke in front of 1,500 people at our conference.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, and do you think that how much was Michael by your side in those situations where same type idea as what you're referencing about saying yes and figuring it out on the fly or on the way after? How much was he, regardless of you actually knowing how to do what you were saying you were doing? How much was he by your side saying you can figure it out or you can do this or he believed in you? Is that
all the time?
Yeah.
All the time. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I think one of the most important things a leader can do, or someone that's a coach or a mentor or a parent, is to believe, is to help people believe in themselves and give them the encouragement, give them the support that they need. And again, translate it now to my approach with people. I know life's so self-correcting, right? When somebody messes up, somebody's, making a decision, I'm like, that's not a good one.
Yeah.
I don't need to point it out to them.
No.
I don't need to, I'm just like, hey, listen, let's see how it works out. And if it doesn't work out, they'll learn, right? And
it's more valuable when they experience the pain of what happened versus you trying to tell them, right?
Totally. And so, I think, he's been, since the beginning, he's been kind of walking me through it. And again, I'm a leader. I don't like being told what to do either. Right. So as he's developed his coaching style and it's changed over years, he's evolved. I've had to do the same. But super important to just give him support and give him love.
Yeah. So, and then at what point did you transition again from working within his office to then, when did 2313 start in terms of your business? When did that organization begin?
So I started my first company when I was 23.
Okay. So it was a year, ultimately. Was it even a year after?
About a year and a month.
Year and a month. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what was that transition like, being, like you just said, you always had him in your ear, like, hey, you got this, you'll be fine, or were you still in the same building?
No. So I finished my, kind of working with him, and then I moved to Columbus, Ohio is when I ran my first business. Okay. So total different city, different market. I remember white knuckling, driving the truck down there, moving to the office space with, a group of people that were helping my office start up. All emotions, right? Scared, excited, scared some more. We were launching a program for AT&T back then in Columbus, Ohio. I remember the first day, cause I went in on a Sunday, I had an office space kind of, similar to this. And I remember getting in my first day, like the staff didn't show up until 8:00. And I was there at 5:30. I just remember getting in there, opening the doors to my office, to my company. And I remember walking around and like just saying, holy shit, this is me.
Yeah.
This is all mine. This is the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. And that was a very freeing moment. 20 years ago, I still remember the feeling. I can picture the walls. I can picture walking in the door. And I was preparing. I prepared 17 different times, different meetings that I prepared, but it was exciting. It was really exciting. And that was my first point that I realized that, hey, this is, entrepreneurship it's on you.
And lonely. So you walk into that empty building with no one there.
Totally.
Counting on you, mind you, as well, waiting to say, what's he going to say? They're all walking in the door waiting for your lead, not anything else. So that's what I'm kind of curious about in terms of what that was like, that transition from him supporting you and being on board with you that whole time too, which I'm sure you guys did calls and things of that nature, but it's totally different when you have to own your own environment, and you're leading every meeting, and everything that happens in an environment is set up by you.
Yep.
What was that like?
Fake it till you make it, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just back, I fortunately had the experience of playing college sports, right? And there's times that you'd walk out in the field, and the nerves inside your stomach, and that nervous excitement, and really just had to kind of start getting busy to get in the game a little bit. You had to maybe check someone, or whatever. And it's kind of the same thing with running the day-to-day operation. I think I got more nervous, and I know this now based on coaching people. But I got more nervous when I was just sitting around and thinking, more than when I was doing things. And so, even nowadays, again, as I coach people and I talk them through their day, because I know the feeling that they're going through if they're a young entrepreneur and trying to help them get them started. I always just try to encourage them to, okay, what's the action? What are you going to do? Like, get busy working, get busy doing things, get busy with your highest priorities, and you're going to start that feeling is going to go away because you're going to get busy doing things.
Yeah.
And so that was really kind of how I kind of got past it. And fortunately to your point, like I did I had something pop up that I didn't know. I picked up the phone and called them. And I mean, my first couple months in business, I blew them up.
Yeah.
That's a ton.
How much would you say that utilizing those emotions helped you maybe work a little harder? In terms of, I think a lot of people are terrified of feeling negative emotion, or not even negative, feeling any type of emotion, whether it's anxiousness or nervousness. And I think that it's important that you choose how you can look at that.
Sure.
You choose what you can do with that. And I think it's a small intricacy, but when you change the perspective from I'm nervous, this is a bad thing, I'm going to fail, to I'm nervous, this means a lot to me, let's use it. Mm-hmm. I think that's a huge flip.
100%.
Was there a point where that flipped for you, or when did you realize that?
I don't know if there's like one defining moment or whatever. Yeah. But I knew that, and I know now because I tell people about it, but back then in my gut, I knew the most important conversation I had was with myself. And I know this now by understanding the mind, the conscious and subconscious. But back then, before I even studied humans and psychology, because I've done a lot of that in the last 5 to 8 years.
As I recommend most people should.
100%.
Should do a lot more of it.
Yeah. And so, but I knew then, like in my gut, like I had to, I had to get busy, right? I had to get working. And that fear, that anxiety, all of it, I use it as fuel. I use it as, hey, let's get busy. Let's make some money. Let's do well. And listen, I'm a young entrepreneur, right? There's a lot of people that are like, oh, you're crazy. Oh, that's not going to work. I had some, friends or former friends that would say some things and concepts. And, and again, I'm big on proving people wrong. I'm big on, I was back then, I wanted to be a self-made millionaire by 30. I wanted to really grow and do well at a young age. And again, I started to realize there's not just no seniority in business, there's no seniority in life. And so I wanted to accomplish a lot at a young age. So when I did decide to get married and I did decide to have kids, I'd have more freedoms and I could be around, and to me, it's more about the time than the money, and the accomplishments. And so, but I absolutely use it as fuel to get busy.
Yeah. And I think that it's really important, because I think people would think that someone that's very successful might be stone cold, never feel any emotions. They're just calm, cool, and collected. And I think the reality is maybe the most successful people are the ones that have the deepest emotions that maybe drive them to do more than other people would. I think the people that are numb and maybe try to distract themselves from the emotions that they're having are the ones that don't take action, because they're numbing what would drive them to do something in the first place.
Yeah. That's a great perspective, because I agree. I am not that guy. I am full of emotions. I am super passionate. I may hide it well.
That's what I'm saying. You're utilizing it. You're harnessing it. It doesn't mean you're not experiencing it.
Exactly. In front of people, in front of a crowd, in front of my staff, it's like the duck on the water. You see me just kind of going across the water, but inside, my insides are turning 1,000 miles a minute.
That's good. it means that it matters is what I feel like when I'm experiencing those. I don't experience that type of emotion when it's something that isn't that important to me. Yep. It's only when it's super important and I care about it.
Yep. Yeah, I have a good friend of mine, Jim Majeski, that I was at a conference in Toronto. I'll never forget it. And I was getting invited on stage as he was to speak in front of, 1,000 people. It was probably like 10, 15 years ago.
No big deal.
He says to me, I like looked at him and he's like getting all like this and puts his hands together, excuse me. And he goes like this.